Hey everybody, it's Rob with Adblockers here. Today I'm joined by Matthew from Criteo. He's the Vice President of Partnerships over there. He's an industry veteran in AdTech. He's built a really successful publisher business at Criteo. I believe you've also been involved in LinkedIn's programmatic stack before that. Fun fact and a little claim to fame that he touts about himself is that you've invented your own way of tying your own shoelaces. Maybe throughout this call at some point we can demonstrate that because I'm really curious.
Right.
But yeah, Matthew, welcome. It's nice to have you. Maybe you want to just take a quick second and introduce yourself. I'm sure the listeners would love to hear a
Sure.
bit about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Lovely to be here, and thank you. Out of all of the achievements that we listed, that you chose the shoelace tying one. It's definitely the greatest. But I have to say, it is my own unique way of tying my shoelaces, and everyone who's ever seen it says it's very weird. But it's terribly inefficient, so I wouldn't recommend others to try and copy it or learn from me. In terms of a little bit about me, I live just outside New York with my young family. Originally from London, as maybe I've retained some of the accent, but we've been here a good 5 years in
You'd never
America,
know.
and you'd never know, right? We could just be from upstate New York, maybe, but yeah, we've been here a good 5 years and really enjoyed our time here, and even made our own little American since we got here. So we've kind of settled in the tri-state area.
Awesome. That's great. How do you have a preference now that you're here in America? I'm in Canada, but now that you're in America, do you have a preference? Do you miss home? Are you homesick? Would you prefer to be back in London? Do you like it here?
I'm always homesick. I miss my mom and my
Yeah.
family a lot, and I guess everyone who's an expat wherever they might be probably feels similar. But there's a lot of great things about living in the States. We just got back from Montreal. Actually, really love Canada and spent a lot of time there as well. And it's maybe an in between culturally between kind of Western
Yeah.
Europe and the US. So it's a good spot for us. But and we we're very lucky. We get to go back to London since the pandemic sort of tapered that reasonably regularly now. So maybe trying to
Right.
do our
Yeah.
best to enjoy the best of both worlds, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Do you work remotely or do you work out of the office?
I'm doing
Um,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, we're just outside, we're in Connecticut, but I'm doing the
Oh, okay.
I guess it's like the hybrid pattern work. Criteo is really flexible, right? We have this open concept where you can, sort of choose when and if you wish to come in. I like talking to people. I have a client facing role and team. I love seeing my team and seeing our clients and getting out to events. So I'm kind of working from home Mondays and Fridays, and then coming into New York or going, traveling somewhere. It's kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday usually. So I get a good
Awesome.
mix. Yeah. Been
Yeah,
fun though.
yeah,
I've got like a
that's
young
awesome.
kid, as I said, and so you get to spend a lot of time. The upside of this new working arrangement is I get to spend a lot more time with him than I otherwise would have at this stage. So yeah, it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. We went fully remote, at the start of COVID and near the end, really nobody wanted to go back to the office. Everybody liked this new, method of
Right.
working from home and it worked out really well and really you're no longer limited to fishing in a small pond, right? If you're looking to hire the best of the best, you're no longer limited to saying, "Hey, you need to be in the city or you need to relocate." It's been really good. That's kind of the general feedback I've heard from a lot of people. Um, I actually did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Ron over at Weatherbug, and one of the things that we were
Hmm.
talking about then was just hiring in the ad tech industry in general. It's not like you can go to college, university, and learn a bit about marketing and things like that, but there's not a lot of ad tech that's taught in these sort of courses, right?
Right.
Um, right, like you're taught a little bit about like maybe running a campaign and some of like the flighting stuff like that, but there's not a lot of ad tech that's necessarily taught in there. It's kind of like it's a skill set that you pick up as you go.
Hmm.
It's really cool to see some people come out with marketing backgrounds, but a lot of the people I've spoken ad tech didn't come from ad tech backgrounds at all. Myself, I was a
Hmm.
paramedic long before I was an ad tech. um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so from your point of view, in your position over at Criteo, how have you guys found that kind of ecosystem so far when you're branching out and you're hiring in the ad tech ecosystem? For listeners here that might be in a similar space, have you
Hmm.
found a struggle in people with ad tech experience? Have do you have people that have come from other industries that have transitioned relatively well? Tell us a little bit about about that, and maybe about like leading a team in ad tech in general. It's a
Yeah,
it's an entirely different can of worms than pretty much any other industry I've been in.
yeah. There's a lot there, so Rob. I'll try and unpack it a bit. We had a
Yeah.
call this morning, one of my team calls. This new gentleman, Casey, who's joined, and we're asking. I think the intro question was like, "What's your favorite TV show?" And he said, "Oh, Mad Men." I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
It was
Oh
a
yeah.
great show, but he was like, "Oh, that's actually why I got into digital marketing because I was at uni, watched that, loved it, changed into marketing, and now I've ended up here." And I don't know if doing partnerships deals at Criteo is quite the same as being like Roger Sterling or someone in Mad
Right.
Men, but he set his course from that piece of PR that I don't know Top Gun was used to attract people to the Air Force. Maybe Mad Men's done
That's
that for
right.
our industry, but I definitely would look at it that I am often surprised and kind of grateful for what a good working experience being in technology and ad technology has given me and seems to give the people I get to work with. I think we're a quite fortunate area, an industry that it seems to attract people who are very caring and passionate and want to do well, but they're like quite nice and collegiate about how they want to go about their business. And um, I talk to friends in legal and finance, and I'm kind of happy that we took this path. It seems
Yeah.
technology seems a good place to be. So um, I can see that it's attractive for people who want to go and work and grow and be challenged on a regular basis, and I think that's kind of a cool thing. The past few years, we've seen that there's been a huge influx of investment into technology businesses, right? Both
There
public
has
and
been.
private, and that has driven, along with other sectors that are going through kind of similar periods, a massive pull on the available talent pool of experienced people, right? And so there's been this drive of money available and growth ambitions for businesses, and there haven't been enough experienced candidates, and that's driven up the competitiveness and the cost of hiring over the
Yep.
past couple of years. And everyone you speak to is the same, right? The cost of hiring has gone up beyond what they forecast in the
Oh
past couple
yeah.
of years, and um,
Absolutely.
I would say great for all the people. One, like that's cool, right? You get to go into and see your career accelerate during these kind of periods of time, and so that's a cool thing, and something that I hope people are enjoying and have taken advantage of. The um, challenge, I guess, is within that environment of competitiveness for great talent. Like, how do you win? How do you get the best people into your business, into your team? How do you keep the ones that are there happy? Um, we work really hard on, and Megan Clark and our CEO has been incredible on this, in trying to think about, and her leadership team, what's the culture of our business? What do we want to be about? We have this mantra around, open, together, impactful, and try and anchor of this being a really good, kind, cooperative place to work, but one that really is driven to win every day. And if that fits with people's mindset and culture ambitions, and it's kind of a good environment for them. So we try and make sure the environmental piece is there. Try and make sure the work is meaningful, that we believe and have a good way of operating in order to win and the spaces that we want to play in, and that thankfully has been very successful over the past couple of years for Criteo. So try and offer that in terms of what is it you're going to provide to them. And I think for my teams, we talked a lot about this at LinkedIn, and something that I've really kept on board is when someone comes on board to one of my teams, I really think about how do we set them up with their skills, experience, and network exposure that's going to mean that the time they choose to spend within my group is an accelerant for their career. So if they had a nice positive
Yep.
trajectory before, that this actually sharpens that curve and makes it a really impactful time for their career, that they're going to look on and go, oh, those few years were like, wow, I learned so much, I did so much, I met so many folks, and that's really grown my career, right? And I would like to think about that as an obligation for me as a leader to try and create that environment for people and for them to be able to write their story within my organization to kind of do that with their career. So we look at those like elements of competitiveness, of obviously compensation as well. And um, so far, touch wood, every role we've managed to fill that we've opened in the last couple of years and filled with, frankly, some exceptional people. And some of them are Mad Men fans, some of them have other TV choices, but like it's been a good run for the past year or 2 or 3 years since I've been at Criteo of like hiring some really great people into the organization and retaining some exceptional talent as well. I don't know if
Awesome.
that answered all your points,
Yeah,
Rob, but I
no, that's
tried to give you good
absolutely,
covering.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's 100% splendid. Culture is a really big thing, it, and not just like yourself. I also come from like a client facing role, um, but even on kind of the back end where you have developers and engineers and things like that, the culture is a really really important thing here. And if you don't have the right culture, there's the pickings are not so slim anymore. So really,
Yeah.
a really good, well-versed dev, and especially somebody with ad tech experience, is pretty much a unicorn in the hiring pool right now. So, if they
Hmm.
have years of experience in ad tech, it's pretty easy to jump ship and find somewhere else. So you definitely want to retain,
Yeah.
the team you have, which is something we focused quite a bit here on as well. It's really cool to hear you guys do the
Smart.
same. Is there any like tips and tricks that you would recommend to companies to retain
One is being really
beyond
clear
the
with yourself. Yeah,
yeah, I was
the
going to
sort of
say
environmental
beyond the
points.
idea of the trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think some quarters, some years, it's hard to offer that, right? You're like, actually, this is the job and we need it done, kind of thing. And the the way I look at it is there are, there's a mindset of people who are often very successful in digital advertising, and for me, that's I use that sort of Carol Dweck language of growth mindset. So people who are hungry to learn and grow and want to develop, right? The industry is always changing. So do you have that kind of innate motivation and the kind of
Yeah.
intellect and curiosity to put it to good use? You want to be clear as a leadership group who those folks are in your organization that kind of have that, so that they have the ability to scale and move into new areas and have more value for your company over time. And then how do you invest in them? How do you fulfill their need to grow and their desires and learning and expectations, whether that's through projects, through assignments, through role expansion, team expansion, taking on new business opportunities for you, whatever that looks like in your setting, I think is really important. And to be methodical and precise about that, right? Who are those top
Yeah.
people in your organization? How are you helping them develop their career every week? What is it you're doing for them in terms of exposure? I think a lot about this kind of idea of skills, experience, network. What is it you're trying to do for them in terms of exposure to their network, experiences you're giving them,
Yep.
skills you're helping them develop along the way, and uh, what you want to be able to be really clear with yourself and your leadership team on is like, we're doing everything for these top people, the high potential, the high performers in our organization that we can think of, and we're having an articulate, open dialogue with them about the other things they think we should be doing, right? So there's nothing
Yep.
left
Absolutely.
untried. And then at the other end of the spectrum, that means that there isn't as much time, and you should be clear about who are the folks that aren't fitting quite with what your expectations are and how you're helping them grow or find other avenues for their career. And that allows you the freedom to be really clear that this is an environment for exceptional people, and we're doing everything to make sure that they're as happy as possible. And then the old backup rule I had, this guy John, I worked with Josh Grath, who was super inspiration in my career. He said, like, for every role, every leader should, every exec should have 2 or 3 backups for them. So even if you've done all that work to make sure that they're as rewarded and happy as you can make them, you got to know
Right.
that there's always going to be something else that might come along, and you should be prepared for that and for your organization, so that if they're critical roles, you have some optionality as a manager to fulfill them, or whether that's succession planning, whatever it might look like over time.
I love that. That is excellent advice. I'm going to shift gears a little, kind of back to the ad tech space, a little less around, the hiring and so forth. Let's talk Criteo a little bit. Um, I want to give you a little bit of time to maybe delve into what exactly Criteo does for publishers. So, for folks that are new listening in that maybe haven't had experience with Criteo so far, or then maybe they've done a little bit of research and found you online, tell us a bit about Criteo. What you guys do, what your offering is. Maybe give us that 30,000 foot pitch.
My lift pitch or elevator pitch, the to translate. So, like Criteo is a 15-year-old tech company, right? We've been around the block. We've done some stuff. It's a few billion dollars, a few thousand people, very global. It's built around retargeting as the core business, right? So there's ads that follow you
Right.
around the internet that I think everyone in the industry is pretty familiar with. But really, the past 3 years, we've been on a journey of transformation to think about what is the next 15 years of growth for the company. What is that going to take? What are the core assets and capabilities we have that we want to bring together and utilize in a way that's going to drive that growth for the next decade plus? And for us, we've anchored in building out what will be the world's leading commerce media platform. And that's two elements to it. One is about how do we drive outcomes for marketers and advertisers with a commerce intention, something like a sale or driving towards a sale. And on the other side, how do we drive monetization yield for media owners, whether they're retailers or more traditional publishers or digital publishers? And so that platform is now, a year plus into its life, and we have 23,000 advertisers, over 1,000 media owners connected through our technology and utilizing our products and services in order to drive, like I said, either outcomes or monetization. And we're constantly building upon that platform all around this core concept of, kind of performance, right? If you've got media, you want it to make the
Yeah,
most money out of it. Or if you've got
that's right.
advertising needs, you want to get them hit in terms of the objectives that you have. So that's really
Yeah.
where we've been focused as an organization. And everything we've done in the market is about driving this kind of commerce media platform concept and now kind of product
Hmm.
set forward into the market.
That's awesome. So you guys started in the retargeting space. Is there still, it's obviously giant elephant in the room in the ad tech space right now with the third party cookies dying off and all that sort of stuff, and everybody coming up with their own solution, and you've got
Hmm.
Unified and ID5 and a bunch of these other ones. Um,
Yeah.
are you guys focusing? Are you going to continue to focus on a bit? Have you switched gears completely to now this like commerce profile? Are you still doing anything around the remarket or retargeting? Is that still on the radar? Is that something you guys are still going to be working on? Do you have a solution in place now for a cookieless world? Tell us a little bit about that. Is that,
Yeah.
have you shifted gears completely?
Um, I think as a business, we've shifted gears completely, but there are, in terms of, this sort of platform play rather than being a kind of product play for the company. But the retargeting, remarketing is still incredibly valuable in driving outcomes for our client base, and so it's hugely important for our
Right.
business. And there are many people working on it every day in the company, and rightly so. And so we see that. As being one facet of things that we do for our
Yeah.
advertisers and one facet of how we drive monetization for media owners. But it's a very important one for sure, and it's our history, our heritage. So it's something we continue to invest in. I think what you can see is that whether it's cookies or maybe just to broaden that out, it's kind of signal degradation over the past couple of
Yeah.
years in different environments makes some of the ways that was traditionally done around cookie matching more challenging, right? I think every
Yeah.
business is aware of that in
Yep.
the space, and you can see that in Facebook and Co's kind of earnings updates. What we see is a couple of solutions to that. One is how do you rebuild signals into your buying path that actually have more persistent longevity to them, and re-architect the way that some of these things are done in a more sustainable manner. For us, we look at that on a spectrum, right? So there's in our case, because we work directly with the advertiser, most of the time they're passing us a customer list in the form of a hashed email. And then,
Oh, okay.
in
Right.
some
Yep.
environments, we translate that into a cookie in order to buy against that hashed email. This is obviously,
Right. Right.
much less efficient
Yeah.
than actually just if the media owner has a hashed email or the ability to acquire one, then we can match, do a high fidelity
Right.
match and actually
Yeah.
directly do that. And so that's what I mean is architecturally that's much smarter than translating into cookies and utilizing those, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of
Absolutely.
one of the areas of solution we have. We also have worked within the pre-bid community and now the IAB to think about, um, are there other ways that media owners can secure remarketing type investment without needing to go fully into acquiring a hashed email or a phone
Right.
number, because obviously that creates some drop off from their user base. So we have
Mhm.
released that and started to talk to a lot of potential partners about an open source initiative to help secure that kind of revenue for partners. And then there are the sort of second avenue. There are many identity solutions. Some of them you pay for, some of them you sort of
Yeah.
they Trojan horse in and you pay for them somewhere else. And we're working through which ones of those make sense for our ecosystem. And for us, it's really about like what is going to be the easiest way for our partners and our advertisers to kind of work together and drive value, and not being too hung up on a single solution set. But the
Yeah.
more high fidelity and the fewer intermediaries, probably the better in terms of the architecture and the cost base, being able to drive the outcomes and the monetization. So that's what we aspire to. But AdTech sometimes has its own thoughts and own complications, and so we'll plug in, and I'll look after the general partnerships as well. And we'll plug in the partners that we need to in order to kind of make the most value
Yeah.
for our customer base.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's a problem kind of faced by everybody right now in the ad tech ecosystem. It's not Criteo specific. Everybody kind of is faced with the same thing. It's interesting you brought up, that high fidelity match. Um, is there, any one subset of, say, like first party data? So you think an email address is kind of the best thing you could match on? You think of publishers or retailers, anybody that has first party data. What's the I work a lot with publishers directly here, and we see anything from like demographic data that when the user signs up, they put in their age, their location, consent, things like that. Are there any particular subsets that you've seen publishers have a lot of success with in terms of targeting either programmatic or direct deals? Like, certain demographic stuff was super popular years ago. It's a little less relevant now. Is there any beyond maybe some email address and things like that, is there any other demographic details that you find is
Yeah,
really successful for publishers today as opposed to a few years ago?
yeah, I think there's definitely a trend, and this depends on what content you have, what data you have on your users, and what you can make available. But there's a good flow of, look, if you've got a high fidelity match, right, that allows you to not only do targeting but also prove the efficacy of the ads that you're selling.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the higher point of value and recurring spend. So that's definitely for me, I think, something that I encourage publishers to think about aiming for. Is like, hey, how do we introduce into our user models some degree of auth or login, right, and capturing some
Yeah.
data. And then you can start to think more broadly about, well, I don't have that. I've only got that for 2% of my inventory or whatever it might be. But what do I want to do for the other 98%? Well, I can start to capture interests. I can start to capture inferred demographic data and start to build up some models based on that. That at least you can, um, think about enriching the value from like, hey, this is when you come into my site, in the old days of a blind buy, it used to just be opaque. You didn't know what you were buying,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And now
Yep. Shooting in the
I know
dark,
the
right?
URL. I know the URL. I maybe know some other details about the user, and maybe I can even get a
Yep.
match for a certain percentage of them. that all expands the value potential from, we're a buyer, like we spend billions of dollars a year for our advertisers. That all expands the value potential for that media owner. So I think definitely trying to get a handle on everything you can get and what you can make available, and then start to test and learn as to what adds the most value, what's going to drive the RPMs for you.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Has ad blockers been a challenge at all? So I can't remember the last number. It was like 30% of Chrome users in continental
I've had
US.
some
Have
wildly different estimates
I
depending on who we
yeah,
talk to and what it looks like. I
I've
don't
heard, I
know.
don't know, like there's different ones. You'll read, some numbers from eMarketer and they'll say like 30 or
Yeah,
40%. There's other places, and I know I have, some friends overseas, and they swear everybody uses it. And then other
yeah.
countries, nobody uses it whatsoever, right? So I think it really just depends on, like you said, who you talk to. But have they been a
Yeah.
challenge for you guys? If so, how do you overcome them? What are your whole thoughts on that whole thing, right? Losing 30% of potentially 30% of
Of
your ad
available
revenue
inventory.
can be, yeah, can be
Yeah.
cumbersome.
Well, there's sort of an industry point, right, where if people don't find utility in the ads that are being served to them, then we're in the business of driving effective ads. Then we have not done, and this is everyone in the industry. We've not done a good enough job, right? So we should own up to that and say, look,
Absolutely.
I think there's an opportunity for us to drive higher level of relevance in advertising and better types of formats and usage of those formats, so that people don't feel that it's worth installing an ad blocker, right? So I think there's that element. Once you do have the ad blocker in, and I don't know if it's 5% or 30%. Honestly, everyone I've spoken to, I've got a different number from.
Yeah.
When you do have that in, and we work with many of the ad blockers, then there are paths for providing, what are deemed kind of reasonable or acceptable ads within those environments. So I think that is a way for a media owner to um, reopen some of that inventory that might have been cut off, and to enter
Yeah.
a dialogue with the user, with their customer, and saying, ads are how I make money. That's how I provide all this content for you. We'd love
Exactly.
you to keep reading it. We'd love to be able to keep producing it. Is there a different dynamic
Yeah.
that you would like, and maybe to switch that ad blocker off for this site or this app? I think is a pretty reasonable. It's a pretty reasonable request. It's kind of like you come into the
Yeah.
free buffet every day, and there's a jar as you exit that says, like, please leave a donation, and you're never leaving a donation, but you expect the free
Right.
food to still continue to
Exactly.
be there. I don't know if it works
Yeah.
like that in the over the long term. So I think there has to be, some, and I've seen there's some really good ones from different media owners. I think the FT has a lovely kind of quiz process where they just ask you a couple of questions instead and get some customer data. And I think the Guardian has this kind of support us
Yeah.
idea, which I think has proven really successful for them. There are over 1 million subscribers now, so I think there's paths for media owners to try and enter that dialogue and try and recoup some of that value opportunity
Yeah.
from their users. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, you hit on a really good key point there. It's that, maybe historically we haven't been doing as good as we should have been. And digital advertising was kind of in its infancy for years, so the whole idea of, spray and pray and just getting, ads out there kind of made sense. But now that technology has changed, it's a very privacy centric world out there for people. We absolutely can do better, right? I mean, as a user myself, I honestly have no problem sharing, what I'm interested in. As long as the content and the ads that I'm looking at that are being presented to me are relevant, right? If I'm searching for a new bed and there's an ad for bed sheets or a pillow, right? Like that makes sense to me. I'm more than happy to see that ad and share whatever data I need to get there. Um, yeah, so I'm with you 110%. I love that, right? And I think, if we can get the industry going that direction, then maybe we start to see some of these, these hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully we start to see, some of the adoption of these ad blockers, fall to the wayside, right? Relevancy is key. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
love your sentiment.
Whether we're an infant, a toddler, a teen, I don't know, but like the industry's got a lot of um, opportunity to improve the creative aspect of what we do. And I
Absolutely.
think there are many great businesses, including our own, that have a huge investment in dynamic content optimization, trying to make ads as relevant and as useful as possible. And I think that should only continue for a good foreseeable future. So it'll get better.
Yeah,
I reckon. I'm pretty confident of that. It'll get better probably every
absolutely.
month. So yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know we're at the 30-minute mark, and we usually try and keep these short and sweet. And I've kept you a little longer than I typically do, but I think everything we've talked about was super great. The last step here, we typically roll out the red carpet for you guys, give you a few minutes to talk about Criteo, what's new, what's coming down the pipe. Where can people find you? Can they find you on LinkedIn? Where can they? How can they get in touch with yourself, the Criteo team, and from there? So I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. Hey, look, I know I've taken up a good bit of your time, so yeah, very happy to have had a chance to chat, Rob, and talk everyone through what we're doing and some thoughts on the team thing. You know, I'm very optimistic about digital advertising, and I think, as I said, I think there's
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity for us to get even better and even more mature at what we do. If anyone wants to chat or they'd like to think about partnering with us, then yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's always a good spot. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity to chat to everyone.
It has been an absolute pleasure, Matthew, and I wish you all the best with Criteo as you go forward.
Cool. Thank you, Rob.